we're going to call on one of our favorite guests, Steve Mahoney from Branch 41.
Steve!
We love Steve. Steve,
Yes!
we're sorry we didn't open up to questions. We feel bad for you. We didn't open up to questions, but Steve, the floor is yours.
Letter carriers say they've been working for more than 500 days without a contract, and today they made their voices heard on the streets of
USPS failed to protect Eugene Gates and others.
Can't take it no more.
Mail carrier robbed at gunpoint.
Police are targeting these mail carriers for their universal keys.
Nearly 1,200 reported attacks and other assaults on postal workers just last year alone.
First and foremost, I want to thank Nicole, Lou, and Mike for being on, making themselves accessible, because I believe the respect of the candidates have to be shown to the carriers that they're willing to come out to a public forum, address us, and listen to us. And I really thank them, and I thank the people on the chat. I had two things in mind. One is my own thing, closing the gap. I think the way to go is we got to all get the COLA. Let's all get the COLA, and then we'll work on closing the gap with the compounded money in the pocket. But here's the question I got from attending the convention. What I noticed, especially on the resolutions, a lot of the votes were going 2-to-1, more or less, 2,000 and change to 1,000 and change. After the first or second one, it was kind of like, say, beating a dead horse, but that's okay. That's a democratic process. What I did notice, I think it's in our NALC Constitution. I don't know if you're a 204B. There's a restriction where you can only vote on things pertaining if you have the health coverage. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure our three guests are more learned than me. But with that thought in mind, where at times people can only vote on certain things that are pertinent to them, I noticed those resolutions dealt with contractual issues that affect only active letter carriers. However, at our convention, active and retirees vote. So our retirees are voting on things that doesn't have a direct impact on them as it will on our active letter carriers. So my opinion is that when it comes to contractual issues affecting only active letter carriers at a convention, it should be restricted to the active members, because we're the ones that got skin in the game, so to speak. And I think then you get more of a relevancy of the voice of your active carriers, because we're basically putting forth resolutions that affect us. I'm at table 2, top step. I didn't want that $1,000. I wanted it to go to the COLA. But if anybody's there that would care to answer the question, if it's not clear to you, I'll try to rephrase it.
Well, Lou's still here. Lou, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think the COLA is really a big deal. And that's what that's the first thing we should do is get to top step quicker, because that affects everybody all the way up the chain. And the COLA thing, both of them got to come in. But I agree with Steve about this.
Steve, that kind of answer you, and no?
Not really, because I was talking about at the convention, our retirees, like, they're allowed to vote on resolutions that only pertain to contract negotiation. So in essence, my opinion is that only the active carriers should be voting on that, because they're the only ones with skin in the game when it comes to some of the resolutions. If it's only geared to it, if it's anything that may spill over to the retirees, kind of just like they don't get to vote on our contract, but they get to vote on resolutions that would affect our contract. So that's the kind of, do you kind of understand the question I'm trying to ask?
Yes, I do. I don't know how realistic it would be to do what you're talking about at a convention. There's 5,000 people there. I don't know how many retirees are at the convention. But I guess if it's come time to vote, what are you going to say? Okay, all the retirees leave the room. I mean, you could say that. Some of them might have a hard time getting out of the room and back in. I think that retirees understand about contractual issues. So I don't really see that being a realistic thing. And I don't think it's necessary to do that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Bradford, you've had your hand raised for a while, and you were at the mic a lot at the convention. What do you have to say?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to go on so much. I do speak too much, so let me make it brief. I have two major issues which I have never understood. In the convention that we had in Minnesota, I had a resolution to go to the floor. Fred was for it. In all fairness, the MBAs went around and killed it. And I know and I understand why, but I never got the reason. We as a union has never used one of our greatest resources, the public. The public support letter carriers. As I wish we would start renaming ourselves the very fabric of the community. You look at Congress, oh yeah, get rid of the post office, but not in my district, because my people would hang me. Right? Same words out of Nixon. So it's about time we stop putting our head in the sand and start using that public as to help with the pressure to support our positions. They want us here. I'm going to end on this note. I ask people all the time, oh, is our company doing a good job for you? I mean, we come to your house every day. Who's that? They're all puzzled. They don't say anything. And then when I say letter carrier, they go, oh, yeah, of course. And I understand what their advisors are saying. We don't even think about that because they're there every day. If they're not there, there's a problem. So it's about time we stop being afraid. As you remember, that resolution I put forth in Minnesota, that Fred challenged Donahue to a debate in the public, on the media, on the future of the Postal Service and how to get it going and how to keep it going. And he told me to my face he was for it all the way. He was going to do what he could to drum up the support. So that's my question to anybody. Why the heck are we throwing that away?
I think you're right. I think the biggest thing that we had going for us, I think it's kind of dropped off a little, is the support from the public. Like in the Pew ratings, we were so high, and now we're lower now. It's not our fault. It's because what management does with the mail and the delay. And I will say that we had about 40 other questions, and Margot did have almost that question to a T. And it was probably like 5 away, I think, Margot.
If you have a question, somebody else is probably wondering it. If you have a question, somebody else out there is probably wondering it. They want an answer too. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm as average as everybody. Listen, thank you all for what you put on. I appreciate it. All the candidates did come to our branch and speak. I made sure of that. I'm still learning to be president, so I could have run it better. Honestly.
Brad, for you in San Francisco, did I remember that correctly?
Yes, we have San Francisco in the north end and the south end. And then sometime other, when I get a chance, I'm going to speak on a second subject very quickly, but I'm not going to talk about it now. I'll just lay it out there for people to think about. I don't even believe we have followed the grievance arbitration procedure, and I've never believed that since shortly after becoming a steward in 2008. We agreed to binding arbitration. When you complete binding arbitration and whoever's on the other side doesn't comply, you go into the courts.
Yep.
And if you don't, then they're saying, oh, well, keep doing it forever because you're never going to make me stop. So I've had that question posed to me by everybody in the Department of Labor. What the hell is wrong with your union? You have all these national arbitration decisions. You're done. You did your job. Why do you keep doing the same thing over and over again? So, hopefully for another debate. Thank you for letting me speak. I got to work on a notice of removal and get up tomorrow morning.
Good luck with that. Thank you, Bradford.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're joined by a very special guest. He's been on the show multiple times. He is one of your candidates for National Secretary Treasurer, Mac Julian. If you can unmute yourself, you've had your hand up for a while. If you're there, Mac, I see you. I will unmute you. Mac, are you there?
Yes, I am. I hang out late, man, especially with you all. We can go for hours. Look, I was just wanting to give a little feedback to the question that the brother asked about voting at the convention. Actually, my next article is about the convention. And, I was very, sitting up there on the dais, I really got a chance to see, front seat to see the interaction of the membership. And, I thought, I noticed some people thought that It was messy and got bogged down. But I thought it was just a brilliant display of the democracy of our union. I've had the opportunity to go to other conferences and conventions, and even AFL-CIO, and none is as democratic as ours is. I was very excited to see the youth or those who are coming about, that really the next generation, if you will, of our membership getting involved and expressing themselves. And I think that, that with their vigor and their energy and with the experience of those members who've been around and been to convention over years, if we're really working together, man, we can come together and do a lot of good things. Now, one of the things that we talked about in our meetings with the team that I'm with, represented by Nicole, is actually ways to improve the convention. The Secretary Treasurer, that's going to be one of my responsibilities. And I brought up the idea, and I saw brother Mike Steele, put it in the comment about electronic devices. I mentioned the possibility of utilizing an app or utilizing your phone to individualize the voting where it's not bogged down with the televote, and or even if it's some kind of clicker. I think the technology is out there, and I think that there's ways to improve upon what we're doing. But I really take the attitude that again, I'm just excited about the level of participation because I see it in these other organizations. In fact, I was talking with President Everett of AFGE, behind scenes, and how they really got their under 40 involved and how they're involved in the constituency groups. And I would really encourage that to get our members exposed to the broader labor movement and bring them fresh ideas from other labor organizations in ours, and not do anything to discourage. In fact, it was towards the end on Friday for those who were still there, and we were going through a teller vote. And I pulled brother to the side because it was obvious up there which way the voting had gone. And I assured him, like I did Mike Rivera, I pulled him to the side. We're not against you. We encourage your input, but when it comes to stuff like this, and we're just dragging it on, that's not an effective way of winning people to your side, or the way you see things. But again, I think that there are ways that we can do things that would encourage the input of those members. Look, I'm not a table two, but I was vocally against from the time that it was presented to us in the council meeting, against that TA. Everywhere I went, it's not my job, I felt, as an officer of this union, to tell people to go out there and tell them how to vote. But I gave them my opinion, and I was very honest about it. And I was very honest with President Renfro about it as well. I shared with my wife. I'm like, look, we're peaked. And if we look at this and, okay, we're not bad. Maybe not what we want, but it's not bad. But I said, this shit sucks. Excuse my language. It sucks because I've had the responsibility when I was president of Branch 11. Every new hire we had from 2010 up to I left, I orientated that group and I sold them on ours being the best damn union in this country, and we fight for everybody. And that thing didn't reflect everybody. So to have a brother or sister working next to me making $20 an hour and I'm making $40 an hour, that's total BS, because you're undervaluing our craft. You're undervaluing the work that I do. You're undervaluing the work that all of us do. So, there's just, I'm really hopeful that after all of this is over, that, that we're really able to come together, because I'm excited about the future of our union. I'm not going to be one to say, we're divided. We're having a lot of challenges right now. But letter carriers is, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota right now. I had a great weekend here. And I was sharing with the retirees, that the very fact that those who went on strike, they really set the table on where we are now. And probably we would be under the Department of Commerce if it wasn't for the 1970 Postal Reform Act. we will probably be under, and even then, we didn't have the right to strike, but we did what we had to do to get our point across. And look where we are today. So I just wanted to share that because you guys know I go on and on. So I'll leave it right there.
Mac, real quick, you talked about everybody, at least you said to Brian, like, about the tentative agreement. How come? I think I know the answer, but how come it's not? It could be. Why can't we make it non-negotiable? Like, we're going to go to an all-career workforce. We're not going to take no for an answer. That is like that. We will walk away from the table. There'll be no more negotiations. If you guys, this is the one thing that we will walk away on the first day of the contract. We slide a piece of paper and say, unless it's all career, let's just go to arbitration right now. Why can't it happen like that?
Look, one of the things I noted about this last round is that round in particular of negotiations was when Fred completed negotiations. He kept us up to breast of everything that was going on. And as a council, we voted. We voted whether we were going to send this out to the membership. That did not happen. And I think it didn't happen for a good reason. I was a president, and one of the things is being a president, you don't put something out there that you don't have the votes for. And I think it was pretty clear at that time that I believe that the council would not have sent that out for ratification. I remember vividly bringing up 8.5L. I didn't like the fact that we opened the door in Article 8 to work over 12 hours and still did nothing to address the fact that there was people who just Medicare's who just wanted to work 8 and skate, right? If we're going to open up that door, then we should have closed the other door right then. I think that when it comes to negotiations, and hopefully we'll see this in the future. I know I'm getting partial here. I know that we'll see this with our team that, it's going to be a collaborative effort that address the needs for everyone. And I don't think that, that we set, that we say that we're going to do something, whether we're going to hold the line on something and we don't go through with it. We say it's going to be that we're going for all career workforce, that we're getting rid of CCAs. Well, shit, if we're not getting what we want, then we're going to arbitration. But let's not fool ourselves in this. We had like a once, probably in a lifetime opportunity during that round of negotiations. The wind was at our back. Postal reform had been passed, where we're no longer paying billions to fund retirees' health benefits. The Postal Service had not begun to cry broke because, they hadn't ended the fiscal year. We should have gone to arbitration right there, and we missed that window. Yeah. So we have a much tougher hill to climb right now, but I still think that we hold the line on what we believe that we want for our members. Right. I hope I answered that question.
No, you did. We always appreciate you, Mac. I'm sure the nightlife in, where are you? Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Sioux Falls, yeah.
I'm sure it's about to take off
out here, man.
Sunday night in Sioux Falls. You're probably ready to hit the town. So, hey, we have somebody that attended the Branch 1100 debate. Carrie, did you want to comment on? I mean, I guess I'll ask you which one. I know which one sounded better, probably this one. But how would you compare the debates tonight? I know there was one more candidate in the 1100 debate.
Hi, I am a member of Branch 1100, and our president took advantage of all the candidates being in Los Angeles to have them come to our next membership meeting. Our members are not on social media. Our members work their asses off and go home and take care of their families, so they don't have time for social media. So they're really not aware of a lot of what's going on here. However, we also recently had a contested election for our branch leadership just a year ago, where the CLC slate went up against another slate, and the CLC slate had lost. That was appealed, and eventually actually was voted on in the convention floor, where their slate lost again. So I felt like when those candidates came into the room, that they really had a chip on their shoulder. And I felt that energy throughout the room, throughout the entire debate. And it was a very negative and hostile chip on their shoulder, which really did not sit well with me. I was planning to vote for quite a few of them already. And after that forum, I feel like I'm just going to vote for Mac and call it a day and pick other candidates. I really appreciate the tone of this forum right here because it's civil. You can talk and not have like the anger and hostility that was thrown at each other in the room in the Branch 1100 meeting. And that's it. So I'm just want to give you my impressions from being in the room itself, because when the facilitator was very light and jovial and cracking jokes with the candidates, yet the CLC people were so hostile that you feel like all the air went out of the room, right? It just was a really heavy. And that's not how our branch is. We talk to each other. We may disagree, but if we don't yell, if we disagree, we don't rant, we don't go on. If we have a disagreement, we, file a charge and take up a field and do it through a bureaucratic manner. But it keeps the tone.
Yeah. I don't understand the hostility. I mean, if they want to win, they're going to have to be our leaders, and you're going to have to drop that hostility when you take over, because, if you take over, I think.
And you're going to have to be able to work with the people that are there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that doesn't carry over.
Yeah.
Hey, Lou, I don't think anyone has asked you, what is your feedback from the Branch 1100 debate or roundtable?
Oh, I don't know. I thought there was too many people, too many candidates in the room, I guess. For me, anyway. I mean, we had the executive vice presidents, two of them. We had the two business agents, and we had the 4 presidential candidates. And to me, that's too many candidates for one, what you call question and answer, debate, whatever. That's my only thing about that.
Somebody asked why James Henry chose not to participate tonight. We did offer it out to him. Capone actually talked to him the other day. He was traveling. Not that they don't have Zoom in where he was, but we're hoping to have some of the CLC back on eventually. We'll just put it at that.
I believe he had a pre-scheduled event or something.
Chris Strickland is here. He is a friend of the show. We've interviewed him about more than anybody, I think. Chris, what did you think about the candidates night tonight?
I thought they did a good job. I was, of course, I'm a Lou guy, just to say that off the bat. But I really like Mike and Nicole as well, and I thought they presented themselves well. I thought Lou's experience kind of showed a lot more, and I felt like Mike has such a good kind of approach, kind of pulls people in a little bit. His personality is really good, and plus he really cares. It really comes off as he really cares. So I was impressed. I liked what both of them had to say.
Good. How's your campaign going?
I think it's going pretty well. I've got several of these podcasts out. I had to pre-record a lot of things, kind of on purpose, because I'm not able to go out and kind of campaign during this hot season right now, because back to deliver mail. So, but it's going pretty well. I'm looking forward to maybe being back on your show or y'all's show, here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk some more, and it's pretty exciting, man. It's really exciting. We've got actually a roundtable discussion set up for next Sunday that I'll send out to several different members across the region, just to kind of that encapsulate just basically top to bottom from all 4 states. And so looking forward to that. Just it's kind of like a little snippet of kind of what I would like to do as the NBA, finding out what all the hot topics are, and seeing how we can connect and get to know each other a little bit. So, yeah, appreciate you.
We got to get you on with your two other candidates. I think you're the only one that responds to us right now.
Well, I'm down. I'm always down.
Yeah, maybe you can throw in a good word. Maybe you can get like a group text going with those two, and then add like me and John and Margot in, and Chris and Capone. Eventually, we get a fun little chat going. We can get a nice little. That's the only three-way race, I think, too. So we kind of want to get that going, right, John?
Yeah. Isn't Lou from that region as well? Lou could be the chair.
Lou could be the chair. How about that?
They weren't booing. They were looing, right, Lou?
You better believe it.
I love it.
Chris Reed asked, did my opponent respond to doing a debate or roundtable? I am waiting with bated breath 4 days later for a response. I don't think he's going to respond to me. But I'll ask again tomorrow.
If there's any business agents in the room that want to come on.
Yeah, there were a lot of business agents here earlier. I think they all left. I think Nicole let them go to bed, or there was some RAAs here too. I think that was required listening. I thought they all did. I'd like to hear from my co-hosts, the ones that are still awake. I think Chris is walking the dog. But Margot? How did you think? You're kind of the newer, fresher face of the post office of the NALC of NextGen. What did you think of the three of them?
Yeah. Well, like I said many times, there were a lot of questions that I wish that we had gotten to that I really would have liked to hear. I think the kind of tricky thing is that, like, there's so many questions that you want to ask, but it's like that you say that there's questions that you want to ask when the truth is that there's questions that you want answers to. And sometimes people for one reason or another are incapable of giving those answers, right? Like in a straight, direct, like saying exactly what they mean, right? So I think that my cat's on my mouse here. But like I think sometimes it's like people say something, and people who are running for something, and I came from politics, I talk about this all the time, but people see somebody who's running for something, and the politician is going to give the answer that's suitable for them to give in that situation, and they want just a straight up like the answer that everyone is thinking, right? And I don't know. I think that you're kind of in a tough place as the politician or the person that's running for something, because you can't always give that answer, right? So it's just, I don't know. I thought it was fascinating. There were a lot of questions that I wish that we could have gotten to, and I am very impressed. I am impressed with the candidates. So yeah.
John and Chris and Capone interviewed Brian 2 times. Margot and I interviewed him once, and I found 3 times.
They came on 3 times.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I did 2. Yeah, that's right. Margot and I did. Yeah, sorry about that. Mm-hmm. What I found refreshing about these 3 candidates gave more refreshing answers, I said, than Brian. I think Brian and Brian is what he is. I think Brian gives the corporate response, and yeah. I thought these 3 gave like more wholesome, more like I could throw mail next to any of them tomorrow and it wouldn't be different. And if Brian walked in and threw mail next to me tomorrow, I think it'd be a little different. So I was kind of refreshed by the 3 of them. I personally liked all 3 of them too. So it's obviously going to be a hard choice when that ballot comes out, but it was refreshing in my mind. John?
Yeah. People have questions that they want to ask, but they really want to hear like what they want to hear. And I think that that's kind of where there's a disconnect happening. They want to hear the president like speak directly to them and like, answer all the questions. And yeah. And they all gave better. I mean, sometimes with Renfro, like God bless and everything, but it felt like the same answer like over and over and over again, or that he would like run us around in circles. And, that was always really frustrating, because it's like people had real serious questions for Renfro, right? Like people had been waiting, and people, we all remember that traumatic time, right? And so yeah, let's pass it over to somebody else. Who else wants to talk?
I think people need to acknowledge that there's 3 candidates here. A lot of the anger was probably towards Nicole Rhine. There was anger also towards Mike Cariff. And there's probably anger towards Lou Drass, which I haven't heard yet. But sent out a message like a week ago asking for questions, and 99% of the questions we received were open-ended questions targeted for all three candidates. So I found that very respectful because I was anticipating a bunch of city carriers that are just trying to target Nicole or target Cariff. So luckily I didn't have to filter those out. I just we ran out of time, right? So I think people need to be more mindful of that. I think there was a lot of frustration in the chat because they wanted to ask a question directly towards someone, and this is not the forum for that. This forum is to have a question that all three could answer, and you should be able to see their facial reactions because we did not give any of these questions to these candidates beforehand. So one of the most important things is to see their reactions and their answers, as some of these questions made the candidates stumble, which is good, right? It shows that they're human, and we're not like the other podcasts that give out the questions beforehand, because I think that's kind of gives them the layup of writing a pre-written response, which kind of, to me, defeats purpose. If you're going to be a leader of an organization, you should be quick on your feet. And I think that's one of the things this podcast is. A lot of people, a certain group of people, maybe just a few people in that certain group of people, call this a Jerry Springer show because we're the only ones that have a live audience and we take questions. So I see a new face here. I'm going to unmute her. Melissa, where are you from? Introduce yourself and ask what your question was in the chat.
I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm a steward. I'm an active steward in our office, and also the board of chairman of board of trustees as well. I don't know which question. I had asked a couple of other ones. I don't know which one you're talking about.
What was your vibe of this whole thing?
The vibe. I felt like I was hearing more. Are you talking about the very first question? Maybe I was talking about, I've just heard this and that, but never the, what's the word? Never the solution for our union is really, I just heard, I like all of them. I've been, Chris Strickland. I know Chris Strickland as well. I love all of them and stuff. Been through everything. But I just never found a solution to what they want for our union, I guess, is my...
We got Lou Drass sitting right here still. Why don't you just ask him a question right now, live, unfiltered? Ask him. Okay. I don't think Lou's going to say no to answering a question.
No, I know. My husband is also here too. He's Forrest Fothergill, so he's a carrier as well in the Lake Charles, but main office as well. So he's kind of... I'm kind of listening to his questions too. One of the questions that I do have to say, Lou, and ask, what is the limit for 204Bs here in offices? Like, how come they can be a supervisor so quickly? Like, if they are a carrier for 2 months or whatever, or say, we're just going to throw that number out there, I don't know. Say like they're a carrier for 2 months, all of a sudden they want to become a 204B. Why is that now? Okay, why isn't there I think they learn their job first, being a carrier for 5-6 years before they decide, oh, we're going to come into it. If they wanted to become a supervisor, why didn't they just go into the supervisor part, instead of coming in here and telling us what to do when they don't even know their job fully?
Well, we have no contract language restricting in that way. What we do have, and I've always fought for, is that CCAs don't have Article 25 rights, which means they can't hold a higher level position like that. Somebody can't do a 1723 on CCA, just got here, and make them supervisor. They're going to make CCA wages. They can't make. That's one deterrent that does exist. As far as I fully agree, somebody ought to have to be in the craft for 3 years or 4 years, something. There ought to be something about that. I've always said that, but it's never happened. And you'd have to have a contractual language to prevent that. And we just don't.
Can we
I fully understand. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you were talking. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Anyway, there's nothing worse than having somebody who just got here trying to tell somebody who's been doing this for 25 years how to do what they're doing. It's a frustrating experience. Now, for me personally, whenever I had that, I just let them talk. And if you just let them talk long enough, they're going to tell you what they want you to do. And if you do exactly what they said, you're going to make more money because it's going to take you longer to do whatever they just said. And that's always been true, me. But that doesn't help your cause. You know, the only way to do that would be to negotiate something, and it would have to be something in the contract, like 204B loses a route after 4 months, for instance. You know, if they had a route, they lose that route if they stay 204B for 4 months. Something along those lines. It's something that could get negotiated. Will it, this contract? I don't see that.
I do have another question, not on the 204B. Do I have enough time,
Go
or
ahead.
does
Go
it
ahead.
need to?
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
The other question that I'm currently dealing with right now, I've been out of work since May 22nd, obviously due to surgery, but I did not do work comp because I didn't have a desire. It's not really a work comp question, but my husband donated leave to me as well, so I could have something coming in because I went without a check. The question that I have in the contract, is it going to be negotiated for this shared leave that we have? Is that with y'all, or is that somewhere else that I think the donor that is donating the leave to whoever they want to donate, I think they should have an option to donate what they want. Like if they want to donate annual or if they want to donate sick. Is that something that y'all would do, or is that somewhere else? I may be completely I didn't even think about that until just now. So is that something that gets negotiated by as a president, or talk about in the contract, or is that something that is being worked on, I guess?
Well, there's a memo that controls this situation, and it does not include sick leave. And that's something that could in the future happen. That'd be a tough hill with the Postal Service. Now, another thing is when you do donate, I believe you have to do 8-hour increments. I think that's right.
No, my husband's top pay, and he was only able to donate 104 hours. And he has over 17. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What I'm saying is it has to be in 8-hour increments.
Okay.
Where if I want to donate 6 hours of leave to you, I have to donate 8, or I can't donate. Is what I'm getting at.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
Hey Lou, someone asked. It's his name is their name is Letter Carrier. If you would vote for Mike and Mike would vote for you, was there any conversation about teaming up? One being the EVP and one being the president. You and Mike seem to have a good relationship. Was there any conversation about that?
Yes, we talked about it. We did, but both of us were seeking the president office,
Sure.
and that's just the way it is. We couldn't work it out.
Yeah, no, it's understandable.
Right.
Grant Jones, do you want to unmute yourself and say whatever, a comment, question? Where do I unmute him? I'll unmute.
Well, there you go. Thanks for unmuting me.
Sorry about that.
This is kind of a long question. It's for Lou. You talked about shortening the time between pay steps earlier, and with the majority of today's workforce now being on table 2, that table being much more top heavy in its wage progression compared to the old table 1, you think that we should rethink how we negotiate wages, since USPS has already agreed to the dollar amounts at those higher steps? Shortening the time between steps or eliminating some steps altogether be a more achievable way to deliver substantial raises, especially to like newer and mid-career carriers, and relying primarily on larger flat percentage increases? And then kind of on top of that, do you think that the top step carriers would even support that approach if the trade-off were that once a workforce reaches the top pay much faster, that future contracts could focus more heavily on stronger general wage increases that benefit everyone rather than trying to build one universal wage package that has to address both the extremely long progression at the top step and for those that are already there.
And that is a talking fox in case anybody's questioning their sanity right now. So
Yeah, I'm sorry.
that's okay. People were asking. Lou, go ahead.
Yeah, so almost all letter carriers, like I said before, are Table 2 letter carriers. And the top pay, you could say it's top heavy. But the idea is most letter carriers that get to top step, and they're going to spend another at least 17 years, probably a lot more than that, at top step. So thereby they're going to do better overall. Plus that goes towards your retirement where the steps do not go towards your retirement. But I believe we need a higher start that goes all the way up the line. And as far as I don't believe in eliminating steps, I believe in shortening the time you spend at each step, because that is the only way that you help everybody along the pay scale.
See, I think the really important thing about like making the first, making the people that we think of as table 2, the people in the beginning and people in the middle. I think one thing that gets looked over a lot is the contributions to retirement, right? Because I'm 29 and I have been giving to my retirement for how long? And the fact that I am young has given me such a leg up, like giving to retirement. That money compounds and gets so much farther because you have so much more time in the market. So I do think that it is really important to like help out the beginning, because all this time at the end after 13 years of being like a regular carrier, right? Like, but that money won't get you as far because it hasn't had as much time in the market. So I don't know if that's just my personal finance bit or whatever, but Greg, you can call on someone.
No,
Can I continue with that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, so it's more of we do have the 13 years, and you say, like a lot of people do, that we spend more time at top step. But myself and some other carriers didn't start until way later in the game. Like I was 35 when I started as a CCA. And so when I'm pushing to hitting top step, I'm also, topped out essentially in terms of my energy and even being a carrier and want to, retire. So that's why I was asking that question of shortening everything and bringing people up to the top a little bit quicker. And if you think retirees or even, the majority of the folks would even support something like you were suggesting, Drass.
I think people at the top step would support what we're talking about. And I think that the full COLA makes a big difference, bigger than a lot of people think, that you don't have at the lower steps. That's another thing going against you. But let's just take you're going to be at top step at 48. I don't know how long you're going to work, but stay there at least, I would think, 10 years. You'd have to before you can retire. But back to the other, I just believe that you have to reduce the amount of weeks that you spend at each step, thereby making you get to top step quicker than this 13 years. Because if you let's just say you reduce 6 weeks per step, how many weeks does that equal? When you talk about each step, you'll get to the top a lot quicker, or 10 weeks, or whatever it would be. But it's got to start better. And the other thing that I recognize is that there's a lot of folks that come and work for the Postal Service and leave. This is a job, not a career for many people. And so they take this job and then they work here a while and then go to a different job. This all has to do with the turnover at the first part, too. The Postal Service would save money if they did a better starting pay for the first step.
Right.
They would do better. You draw a better, I don't want to say a better clientele or whatever you want to call it. You draw people who would tend to stay more than what you have now. I think in today's world, you're always going to have some turnover. And so that's another reason why you have to do something at the bottom of the step or the pay scale.
Yeah. I think they've also failed to notice that it's not a job that 20-year-olds start anymore. A lot of people are starting later in life, and those people usually when you start it, I have a lot of people starting in their late 30s and 40s, and usually you need to have that starting pay a little higher for when I started when I was 23. I could afford for it to be lower for a while because I knew I had the next 40 years. Some of these people don't have 40 years, but we want to call on some fresh faces. I'm going to call him Brian Gutierrez. If you want to, I can unmute you. And Brian, thoughts, questions? Or unmute yourself because I can't unmute you for some reason. We'll go back to Brian. Richard Steiner, did you have a comment or a question? There you go.
Yeah, this is not the wrestler Rick Steiner.
Not the
John,
Postmaster General, are you?
Yeah, and I'm not related, as far as I know. So as far as the new hires, letter carriers that are coming in later in life, I think, at least what I'm seeing where I'm at, and I'm one of them, we're coming in later because of age discrimination in the workforce. And the post office doesn't age discriminate. So it's easier for someone older to get into the service. And another opinion I have on this is that the youth see the older people working their fingers to the bones and are choosing a different path in life. Work-life balance is way more important to young people than it is to us older people. I was raised where you're accustomed to make the sacrifice for the greater good of your family or whatever your circumstance was, and any personal or free time you wanted or needed came second. The other thing I wanted to comment on was the convention itself, the voting. Mac touched on it a little bit about modernizing the voting process. And I Googled it while I was sitting on the convention floor. There's plenty of options for live, real-time tallying of votes electronically, clickers, whatever. I was talking about it with some of my branch mates. We were sitting there saying you could just have a QR code associated with your convention credentials. QR code takes you to a landing page where you cast your vote. And the Robert's Rules of Orders need to be modernized. They're antiquated, and a lot of people don't understand them, and we fumbled a lot, and that caused a lot of delays. Another comment, the Article 10 process. Lou, I'm dead set against you on this one. Sorry. If we don't have something that the members can challenge their authority with, then we have nothing at all. There has to be accountability in some form, shape, capacity, or fashion. We cannot do without it. And the good old boy network's been getting away with this crap for far too long, and people are finally waking up, reading the rule books and applying it. And the establishment doesn't like it. I'm disturbed by that thought process. And that's all I have. Thanks, guys.
Can I comment?
Oh, go ahead, Lou.
Mind if I comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't have Article 10. I'm saying it gets used more than it should. And that's the thing for the members to figure out. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying for the last, 2 or 3 years, there's been charges and charges and charges and charges, and it just don't stop. And I'm pointing out that it's a difficult thing, and it's the same thing that happens in local branches, and it's a runaway thing that just never ends. And eventually, like for instance, the charges against Brian Renfro, and we had it out at Boston Convention, or y'all did. I was just a guest there. I wasn't a delegate, so I didn't get the chance to vote on any of that. But that should have been the end of it, and it wasn't. It went on and on and on still, and I just don't agree with that. And we can part ways and not agree, but I am not saying we shouldn't have Article 10 charges available. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, we're going to go to some people with their hand raised real quick. We're not going to stay on for too much longer, so let's do some rapid, try to keep it quick. We'll go to CP first. And I just unmuted you, so feel free to talk.
Okay. Two things. Somebody asked something about After Dark. It was called Playboy After Dark.
I'm not stealing that name.
Well, it's a long time back. Very few of you guys would have been around in those days. Anyway, just to hit up on the accountability thing once again. I know of 3 instances, not necessarily. I'm local 4 in Nashville. We've had, supervisors who absolutely never should have been hired for supervisory positions. Also, I was told about a year and a half ago they were going to get rid of 204Bs. I don't know whatever happened to that one. But in one case, 3 different people in management at one office had a grievance filed against them, and they lost because they had stolen $120,000 from the workers at that branch by not fully paying them for their time. Now, this does go to that whole question of accountability. They basically stole over 100 grand, yet they were not punished in any way, shape, or form. As a union, we shouldn't allow that kind of stuff to occur. Now, Lou, I don't know if you even want to talk about it, but I mean, the point is that we let them get away with a lot of things, which does go to something else that I was going to bring up, and I've done before with some of you guys, and that has to go to the culture of the post office. Because one of the things you guys were all talking about a little bit was, to some degree, and I know, John, you've heard me say this a lot, where are we going for the future? Because if we don't crank up the packages, we're out of business within 5 years. Let's be honest. One thing I just heard from somebody is, do you know what Amazon is doing? They're now doing final mile. They're doing it for GoFo and a couple of the Chinese delivery companies. We're losing out on that. We have nobody. And I say this, I ain't no genius. I work for the post office because my last business, I lost $500,000. So I came to work for the post office. But my point is that there doesn't appear to be anybody at the post office who has a clue where the future is. Is that something the union should hold them accountable for? That's it. Small question.
Lou, did you have a response to that, or anybody?
Yeah, I'll give it a try. I think there's almost nothing worse than some manager stealing money from letter carriers. And yeah, they should be fired. And the company should do that on their own. But when it happens, it's done with a wink and a nod. And I've seen that in plenty of towns. As far as getting, we have a grievance procedure. That's what we use. I wish that we had. I wish that would fall under the joint statement on violence and behavior in the workplace, but it's been ruled that it doesn't. And the only thing we can do is take their tax access away. But they ought to be fired. Just like if it was a letter carrier. If a letter carrier stole $10 and they caught you, you'd be fired. And they should be fired. And I believe in that. Now, how to get there, I don't have the answer for you. Exactly how to get there. As far as accountable for the Postal Service's future, we have to do these reforms in Congress if we're going to do the every delivery point in the country. If we're going to do that, what the Constitution requires, then they got to let loose of some of these and handle these reforms that we need in order to make us viable. I mean, it's ridiculous, I think. And we should be talking about that when we go to interest arbitration. Postal Service is going to cry that they're poor. Well, Congress has to act. That's what they got to do if we're going to get anywhere. Now, if we're going to have delivery service to every point in the country, yeah, I want to get more package business. But every year, there's more and more people that order stuff online. And we should capture more of that percentage or a better percentage than we do. But Amazon's a bear. I don't know if you remember back when Amazon, they had the movies they used to send out. And then all of a sudden technology came along and we didn't have that no more. And we've always replaced whatever came along in the Postal Service. And that's what we need to do now.
Right. I think Nicole had such a good time with us. She came back and she's in the waiting room or in the audience. I don't know if Nicole wanted to pop back on and give her thoughts on how the debate went or roundtable went, but if Nicole, did you have any other thoughts? I think she's just listening. Jamie Gregory, I unmuted you. What is your opinion or thoughts or questions for anybody?
Well, first off, to all the next gen guys and girls, thank you. I think this is wonderful. Same with the candidates. A lot of you have no idea how much extra work you created for me this week. So I do appreciate it. Lou, I loved hearing you. I've read a lot of the stuff you've written, and as somebody who loves to write things, it's really you're my spirit animal when it comes to that. I do feel like, because it's Sunday, I'd like to ask a question related to the CCAs for Lou, because he's here and answering them, and Nicole, if she wants to hop on, if that's her. Is do you envision in the future a post office without CCAs? And if you do, how do you think we can reach a point where, whether it's an all career workforce or we have some kind of hybrid between some of what we've had in the past? What do you kind of see if you're able to win the presidency? What you would do to get us there? That's it.
Well, I think we demand an all-career workforce, which means we start off as PTFs, which we have in plenty of cities that don't have CCAs because of the fact they couldn't hire people. So that's really the road to get rid of a non-career. Now, if somehow you had to have a non-career, and I'll say this, and this isn't popular, it should be a solid demand, and if you ever say anything less than that, then you're out. The thing is, CCAs have to make the same starting wage as a career if you're going to have something like that. And I'm not with having nothing like that. I think it should be an all-career workforce. And that's really the long and short of it. And if you had that, then they can have other benefits. Like, for instance, CCAs don't get sick leave. If you're going to have a non-career workforce, if that's what you're stuck with, they should get sick leave. That's just, I think it's ridiculous that our non-careers don't get any sick leave. That's just not fair. And other benefits. But the way to go is the all-career workforce, start off as a PTF, go back to what we used to have. Back then, we had a non-career workforce, but they were casuals, and they could only hire them for 90 days. And they could only hire casuals twice a year. So as you're casual, you could only work a 90-day tour and another 90-day tour, and then you had to leave and come back next year. And that's how it was. So I'm with the all-career PTFs and regular. That's how it should be.
I think Nicole is back.
I haven't heard myself. I haven't heard myself enough today.
I was
Nicole,
trying to talk earlier, but you had it to where I couldn't unmute myself.
I'm sorry.
So,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Nicole,
I didn't get in the chat.
Nicole, I think this is your first podcast that I've ever seen you on.
Uh-huh.
What is your takeaway on coming on to the NextGen Carriers podcast? I assume you were nervous. I assume at first you were nervous, and like most executive council members, very hesitant to come on. But now that you're on, how do you feel?
Oh no, I enjoyed it very much. I really appreciate the work you're doing to have things like this. It was great. I enjoyed it very much. So,
Nicole, do you think
back to the whole
the CCA thing? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I believe we can get to the point of that's the goal, is to get to an all career workforce. And Lou talked about things that we've had in the past, and and all the questions. I didn't even mention that. I was hired as a casual. I served 2 90-day terms as a casual, and then was fortunate to get hired as a TE, and then I became a PTF. But yeah, it's just a matter of getting us step by step to that point, right? And as Lou said, we do have places where we hire people in straight as PTF, so it's not some mythical, magical thing that will never happen, that could never happen. It absolutely is. We've just got to work to get there. So,
can it ever be a non-start? Like I think I mentioned this, but when you were right after we signed off, could it ever be a non-starter in negotiations? Like, can you ever just walk in there and say, if this is on the table, we might as well just go to arbitration tomorrow because we need an all-career workforce. We'll give you a 90-day probation, but at day 91, if you keep this person, they are a full-time employee with full-time benefits. Can that ever happen in negotiations?
You know, you work on what you think you can get, right? And is it a step closer? Is it not? Do you stop and go to arbitration? Well, you know, you could, but then you got to, you know, figure out what the arbitrator may do with that, right? You're going to make your case. But the Postal Service on their side is going to make the case like they always do. Well, you know, they need the flexibility. So it's that argument back and forth of, you know, convincing them that it's the best thing, not only for us, it's the best thing for the Postal Service, because obviously, you know, turnover is a problem as well. So.
Nicole, Lou, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you envision route inspections in the future? Do you guys support joint processes? And now we have this new AI system they're working. What is your stance on route inspections? Where do you envision it? Nicole, you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. No, I think we should move towards, you know, getting another joint agreement. I think that is something we should definitely work on. Yeah, the AI thing, you know, AI is it's a scary word for a lot of people. There's a lot of bad, you know, things that can come of that. The question would be if the Postal Service had some kind of AI thing, like how would it be used and how can we control it and you know, how would that look? I think a joint route inspection should be as simple as possible. You go look at what a carrier does, you look at what a carrier can do, and then you adjust the route to 8 hours, right? And it should be a joint process where we have, you know, the data and all that kind of stuff, and we could use, you know, whatever could get us to that goal point. Yeah, the AI thing, it's just learning more about what exactly that would be. And I don't know, you know, Lou, chime in.
Okay. I'm also for a joint route inspection process. But the last process we had, the biggest problem I thought about it is that they had a situation where they're using data, DSR. We don't have access to that, but we worked on it together. Okay, but time would come out unless we argued it back in. Like when you cross the geo whatever fence, I don't know, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
But time would automatically come out, and then we'd argue to put it back in. Where time ought to stay in, and they ought to have to argue for it to come out. And that is a basic principle that would have to get fixed. They're always going to use whatever they use. They're going to want to take out stationary time. They're going to want to take out backtracking time. They do that in a traditional route inspection process, which drives me crazy because who don't miss a package? And you have to go back and deliver it. That's what they tell you to do. They shouldn't be able to take that time away from you because it happens to everybody because we're human beings every day, not the same place, but usually it happens. I mean, everybody here that carries mail, tell me you don't miss a package once in a while, you know, that you have to go back and deliver. That the kind of thing. And whether you did it through joint process, AI, BF, whatever it is, it has to give the letter carrier credit for time that we spend doing the job and stop trying to take stuff away like that.
I never thought the JRAP or the CD rap back in 2015 and 2017, I never thought that was awful. I got sent in to remap with management and a bunch of people that are still around. We didn't lose anything. We just shifted a lot of territory. And then I think after tier wrap, I think at the beginning, correct me if I'm wrong, we started gaining. And then towards the end of it, I think we started losing. And I think there was just no perfect solution to it. So they just said, oh, let's go back to route inspections and make everybody's life miserable. Like we all are going to go through it. I just got memo that I'm going through it next spring during school vacation week. So they're just torturing these people, blacking out the union, the annual that week. and basically saying, "Oh, you were offered a deal, so you should have taken the deal because now we're gonna make everybody mad at you for not taking the deal." And so, I would like to see. I don't even want them to be able to offer a deal anymore. I don't want to see anybody taking a deal. Make them come do it. And if you're going to come do it, I'm going to make your life miserable after. And I think that's the message national should be sending to these regions and to the presidents. Like, if don't take a deal, don't even offer me a deal, because if you do, you're going to screw the next person that's supposed to be the next group that's going to be inspected. So I just think that the whole process alone is disgusting what they're doing with it. So
Yeah, but that's the message we were sending from headquarters. Don't take the deal.
Right.
Because you're never going to get to a joint process unless you make them do the traditional process everywhere. Because it's expensive for them and it's time consuming and it's hard for them to do. And then we are pretty good at filing grievances and pointing out all the things they did wrong, because there'll never be a route inspection that they do by themselves that you won't have that problem. And if they use the core program and they hit optimize, there's an optimize button. That's when everything goes Fruit Loops all over your zone.
Right.
You can use the core process, route adjustment process, and do it in a way that's reasonable. So that's sort of a myth. It's about whether they optimize. Anyway, the joint process is the best thing, but you have to bring them to the table, and the local branches are where they come to the table because they don't get the deals they're looking for. Hey, I'm offering you to take 3 routes out. You don't do it, we'll come here and take 5 routes out. Well, what if they should have only taken 1 route out or no routes out?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
no, the joint process is better than that. I mean, they come in and do chapter 2s and they don't do them right, and we all know that they're going to screw them up. They're going to take things out that they shouldn't have, and then we're filing grievances to reverse it. So, yeah.
I have a question.
And the timing process, it worked okay for like the first half, but the second half, management stopped following the process. And disputes started coming and not getting resolved because management all the way up the line decides they're not going to resolve these disputes. And that's what happened to that process, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question. Why do we never go after management? Like, we talk about grievances, right? But the JSOV was written in the 90s, and it's like still not a reality, right? Like, you talk to most people, it doesn't matter where you are in the country. You pull into that workplace, you're going to have half your coworkers rolling their eyes, the hair stands up in the back of their heads, like, right? The instant dread of pulling into the parking lot. And that's just on local level, right? Then you got the regional level where they come in, or the district level where they come in and destroy routes, right? And then you got the national level. And to me, it seems like we do more lobbying for the USPS than we actually do as acting as a labor union. This goes back to like me saying, the term association was created by the white collar workers back in the 1800s because they didn't want to be associated with socialists that called themselves the labor unions. So it's 2026, and I know you both have been around longer than me, because we can't say that we go after management, right? There's no HR bills or House bills or Senate bills that are addressing the bloated management, right? Or we're never out there when someone dies or does something drastic. We're never out there. We just go leave it to the grievance process. But as a public service, the customers, the community should be aware of how terrible management is, from the workroom floor all the way to the Steiner floor, right? Like, Steiner is a union buster. He came from waste management. He came from busting unions. And we have yet to actually unite with all the postal unions and go on the offense. So I want to know from Lou and Nicole, if you guys want to answer this, why do we not go after management? And you can't do platitudes of the grievance process is there for a reason, but let's be honest, it's not doing anything.
Well, I'll tell you what, I couldn't disagree with you more on what you're saying. We never go after management. That is simply not true. And yes, we do use the grievance procedure because that's how you enforce the joint statement on violence and behavior in the workplace. And you name another entity, another company where you can take a manager and actually remove them from supervising the people that they supervise. You show me somebody else that can do that, that can pull that off. Now, I'll give you this. It takes a lot of time, and it's a frustrating thing. But you have to start from day one and not say, oh, it doesn't work for you. Nobody ever did anything. That's not true. And that is just not true. We've taken a lot of supervisors out from being able to supervise directly or indirectly letter carriers. And that is true. I mean, it's not true every day, everywhere, every time somebody pops off. That you're right about that, but you got to have faith in what we're doing. And the idea that we never go after management, I just totally disagree with you on that.
Yeah, I was going to go along the same direction that Lou was talking about at the end. Getting somebody to fire somebody outright is difficult, but we have been successful in moving people, making sure they can never supervise letter carriers again. We've had that case. We had that case in my branch, and we took care of it. And that person never got to, supervise letter carriers again. So it's not for the fact of, not fighting it. It's doing what we have to deal with those issues, right? And Lou's right. Sometimes it takes a long time. It took us a while to get that supervisor out of there, but we did it, because we did fight management. So.
Yeah, no, to piggyback, I guess we could stay on the shop floor and not talk national. So shop floor, wage theft, right? Wage theft is the biggest theft in the United States. You could combine all the other thefts, right? Burglaries, car theft, all that. It doesn't even come close to wage theft. And it's 2026, and we still have people that need to look at their paychecks to make sure that the manager didn't steal a couple of dollars from them or use annual leave. And it's, file agreements. We'll get this guy suspended from the city carrier craft, and he'll go over to be a desk jockey. Like that's a crime, right? Like if a postal worker got caught like doing something illegal, they would get fired and arrested. But here it's, we're okay with them keeping their job, even though they harmed our workers. So that's my view, is giving a parasite like management a slap on the wrist is not really fighting. And we're in 2026, right? The labor unions across the country are at 8% density, right? When both of you probably got hired at the post office, it was probably at like 20 or 30%. Right now, people are begging for a good union job, and they're putting up with these toxic working places. And to say to file a grievance is, I think, removed from the workroom floor. The job gets harder and harder every year. We're driving FFEs that literally have air conditioning buttons, knobs on them, right? That's like a joke, right? Like imagine being a CCA or a shadow day, and you're like, yo, turn the air conditioning on. And you're like, we can't. And it's like, come on. So if we're going to talk about the national or shop floor, I think whoever wins needs to listen to the next generation of carriers, because it goes with any organization, right? If you remove yourself from your membership and you work your way up, right? If you become a steward, then you become a branch president and you stop carrying mail, then you go into the regional, and then you eventually go into national. You've created so many separation barriers that you end up having more in common with the bosses than you actually do with the rank and file. Like you end up being like them. And that's throughout labor history, right? It's called bureaucracy. And I think we have technology now. It's great that we have these Zooms, right? Like we could have a civilized discussion here. I think we need more of this. And I think one of the biggest things that us fail, right? We voted down this contract, right? We feel that you walk into this workroom floor, writing a grievance is outdated when it comes to addressing the toxic work environment. That's all I will say. But we can move on. We can move on to someone else. I don't want to make it.
Can I just add to that? I'll say this: like you say, the next generation. I think Brian's biggest problem was he stopped listening to people that carried mail. Like I carry every day. I barely take union time. I haven't had a PDI in 3 months in my office, and I have an office of 170 people. And you say you walk into a toxic work environment. I think that starts with the branch president. Maybe some of these branch presidents have been around for too long. You walk into my office, nobody walks in with a sense of fear. I think it's more of a problem with the branch presidents. And when you talked about national, the disconnect, I think Brian's disconnect was he listened to people that stopped carrying mail. And I think you start listening to the branch presidents like Capone and I, who are on the floor every day, hearing what the people's problems are. There's new problems that didn't exist 30 years ago. We're hiring more people with, I'll tell you, people in my office, the anxiety level of some people, not even to do with the delivering mail. Delivering mail is their getaway. We're hiring people that have serious issues in the post, and working at the post office isn't helping it. But, I think it does start at the branch presidents. And I think Capone will probably agree with that because we talk almost every day about this stuff. It's a society issue. It might not be a post office issue, unfortunately.
Well, the branch president or the office rep, and that's where elections come in. That if it's getting to be a toxic workplace because the office rep isn't filing the grievances and getting things done, somebody has to step up and run against them. Because that is how we control that, is through the grievance procedure. Believe me, post office hates nothing more than when you have to sit there and put in union time. That's when they start asking questions of those supervisors, asking what's going on. And that's what ends up stopping it, because when they have to pay the union rep for 8 or 9 grievances a month, whatever, 80 hours union time in a month, they're going to start wondering what's going on in that office, and they're going to have to do something to address it.
I got to let Brian Gutierrez talk because we've been on this game of mute and unmute for like 25 minutes, and I finally got him. So, Brian, go.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's been a little busy over here. I want to just say thank you guys for having this debate between the candidates, and I also thank the candidates for coming on and giving us their views and suggestions and ideas and everything that they're just talking about. It's been a very nice conversation to have with everybody. My question, I guess, it would be to all 4 candidates if they were here, but to Nicole and to Lou. My question would be, and it kind of touches on basically kind of everything that's been being spoken about for maybe the last 20 minutes, is in general, what can National do with regards to a branch president or even just branch presidents, right? Or executive officers who are in charge of a branch who are just not getting it done. And they're just abusing their position. What exactly is the option? In my branch in particular, union meetings are held at 5 p.m. You have to be there in person, and we have starting times from 8:30 and on. So people don't even get off work until 5, and it takes about an hour, depending on where you are, to get to the union hall to get to a meeting. So they have cornered the branch meetings with people who support them in a way that is impossible to overcome. Structurally, there's just doesn't seem to be a way to counter these types of branch presidents who take advantage of their position and on top of that, just don't really do much for the members. And so my question is, is there something that you guys can do about that? Is there something is there an idea that could be done about something like that? And if there is, or if there's anything that you guys can think of, what would be your steps in that kind of situation? Because just taking the idea of, well, somebody's just got to step up and run against him. Yeah, believe me, it's not that simple. The structural disadvantages are just a lot to overcome. And there has to be another way. In my particular branch, my president, they were doing a CNI on just truck assignments on all of our stations. And we have about 70 stations in my branch. And he told us, everybody just file grievances. And I'm a steward in my station. And I filed all the grievances I could file. And there were a total of like 600 grievances that were filed. And then about 2 months later, as they're pending, he came to an agreement with the postmaster to allow all of those routes that they wanted to eliminate to be eliminated, but to allow those routes that remained to remain Saturday, Sunday, because that was one of the things they were trying to change as well. It was truck assignments, and it was all weekend off truck assignments, Saturday, Sunday. And so he made a deal to allow all the routes to be eliminated that they wanted to eliminate, but the ones that remained were allowed to be remained Saturday, Sunday, as if that was some kind of grand deal. And there's just really nothing that could be done about it. And that's just one example. I could go on and on, but we have a branch president that, in my opinion, does not really do much for the members. And I'm not understanding what a regular member like myself can really do about it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lou or Nicole. We're not going to stay much longer. We know you guys. People got to some people got to carry mail in the morning. But Lou and Nicole, feel free to answer.
I didn't want to jump in. Lou, were you trying to talk? Go ahead.
Okay. I can tell you this. I went through this very situation in my life. And I was a regular member just like you. And we had a branch president that had been incumbent for 15 years. He didn't want people coming to the meetings. He didn't run a straight meeting. Nobody really knew any different. And what I did is I ran against him. That's what I did. I stood up and ran. And I went all over the place. And we didn't have 70 stations. We only had 9. But I went everywhere begging for people to vote for me. And in the end, I won. I beat this guy by like 4 votes. And at the time, much like your branches, probably all the people on the executive board of the branch, they were not with me. I was by myself against all of them. And what I did is through my work and through my attitude and determination, I won them over one by one and changed that branch and turned it into something different. And that's what you got to do in your branch. Now, as far as headquarters having a magic wand that can do something, that's a tough thing. That's a tough thing. You can you can take a branch and put them in receivership, but that's the nuclear option. That's that's not something that you're going to see every day. But it is on the people in that branch. If somebody's not doing right, to replace them. That's what you have to do, and that's the best thing I can tell you.
Cool.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say, because when you ask about headquarters, I mean, there have been times where my office, if it has to do with fiscal things, right? If it has to do with the way that's running, if we have sent somebody in to do that. As far as the grievances and stuff, obviously the business agent's office can assist with that kind of thing too. But as far as when Lou talked about the nuclear option, that's putting a branch into trusteeship. And in the history of the NALC, I'm only aware of that we have done that one time. And that's headquarters saying that your branch doesn't function at all. Nothing is being done, and it's being taken over by headquarters. And like I said, we've only done that one time. It is not, as Lou called it, it's a nuclear option. So we try not to go down that road. We try to give the resources, other ways to be able to do that. And as far as your meetings go, a lot of branches have incorporated the online part of that. It was not something we always had. It was necessary when the pandemic came, and enough branches realized that was helpful because, who has too many members at their meetings, right? Nobody. That we allow that too. So your branch could always go towards that as well. But I just wanted to chime in on what Lou said. So
the crowd has been dying for some Melissa Rakestraff. My sister in ranked choice voting. Melissa, the floor is yours.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey. Hi, Nicole. Hey, Lou. thanks a lot for both of you for coming on tonight, sticking around. I'll just say to everybody, I mean, I think most people know I'm from Region 3 and I'm with Mike, but I have nothing but the utmost respect for Nicole and Lou both. I know whenever I've had an issue and reached out to Nicole, you've always been on point and helpful. You're a great trainer. Lou trained me at arbitration training, and that guy's a beast. And so, I really respect the fact that you all could come on here tonight and talk about your thoughts and ideas without having to attack one another. And that's what we need more of in our union in general. So, I wanted to talk real quick about my personal experience because I came up in a branch with a leadership that was entrenched for like 40 years. Um, I was, I, and people want to know, well, like, how do you get rid of stale leadership? And a leadership position does tend to conservatize people. There's no question. And I believe in the rank and file strategy, wherein it's the rank and file that holds their leadership accountable. And we take aim at the bosses as the rank and file. And if our union leaders get in the way, then they're going to take the hit too, as we've seen happen in our own union here recently. And it's not easy, but you have to build that camaraderie amongst your coworkers in the rank and file to hold your leadership accountable, no matter who the leader is. And I think that that's what we're going to have to do locally, regionally, nationally going forward. And I'm not saying it's easy, but nothing usually is that's worth achieving. One thing I wanted to ask both of your thoughts about is I think both of you are very capable leaders, and regardless of who ends up winning this election, I think our union's going to be moved forward. But I am curious if either of you feel that there need to be some structural changes so that no matter who our president is, some of the things that have happened over the last 4 years, where there's so much power concentrated in the executive position of presidency, that has to be addressed so that some of the stuff like collective bargaining, for instance, that there's more democratic control outside of the presidency. So I'm curious what the both of you think about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, the last 4 years have been difficult. They've been rough. I get it. That's why we've all chosen one way or another, all of us, to turn the page and do something different. I mean, I want to answer. I always try to answer honestly. I want to answer honestly here. A lot of those issues didn't exist before, right? So a lot of I feel like sometimes we're changing something that wasn't necessarily a problem before based on what we're going through right now. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's not the answer, right? It's just, when we look at it that way, and I get where the question's coming from, Alyssa, I think with the things that have been passed by the members at the conventions, with more openness on the negotiations, with more transparency, more communication, which I know I'm for, I know Lou's for, those things will improve what we had in the past. Yeah, it's look, nobody wants to be, go backwards. Everybody wants to go forward. But for me, that's the harder question is I know that a lot of things are just a reaction to what we're dealing with right now. And how we deal with that going forward, I think we need to figure out, what the best path is, right? And I know I'm willing to find that path. I'm sure Lou is willing to find that path too. So I'll let Lou talk.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything. Well, everything she's saying, Nicole. I just don't believe that you need to change the structure of an organization because of one person, one time. And I think that's what you're looking at. And we don't ever want to have this happen again. Well, it may not happen again to start with. In the end, as far as the contract goes, when you send that out, the members decide whether to ratify or not. Now, they don't ratify, you really should go to full-blown arbitration. I understand what happened and why it happened because of Trump and all that stuff that was going on at the time. Our timing sucked. But that's what should go on, But as far as changing the whole structure of the union, changing the Constitution, some changes were made, and, that's the way it'll be. And maybe you need to make some more changes next time. But why don't you wait and see who gets in the office and how they do before you go doing that? That's what I think.
Yeah, I think I want to say thank you for Lou for staying on this whole time since 7 o'clock, and Nicole for coming back. Nicole enjoyed podcast so much she came back, and
Sorry, I had to step off for a minute.
No,
I was
it's
like,
okay.
I'm going to see if they're still going. Because if they are, I'm getting
Usually we
on.
would
Yeah.
have guessed that Mike would have been the one still on. Mike actually didn't want to talk, which is a change. But I think we want to end this because it's getting a little late. But I think I want to give Steve Mahoney the last word because Steve's always a good sport. He's one of our favorites. So Steve, you have the last word, and I promise we will get to everybody else next time. I'm gonna unmute you, Steve. Don't hit a thing. There you go, Steve. You're muted.
All right, thank you very much. When it comes to talking about a contract, I guess we all kind of think the same way. Show me the money. And I'd like to know if during contract negotiations, does the post office show how much in uniform allowance reverted back to them? And most importantly, in sick leave, like the young lady mentioned previously, a recent fellow that retired had over 6 months of sick leave in the bank. So yeah, they added that to his annuity. I think the base was around 75 grand at the time, so he had 37.5. He got $60 big a month, so he has to live to be 119 to break even. That was a tremendous savings by the post office. And I've never really heard that discussed. So when you are in that face-to-face, are you given that numbers? Is that something that comes up? And most importantly, why aren't we given that numbers? My first uniform allowance, I was saving up for those Gore-Tex pants. Nobody explained to me you couldn't roll it over like we can do now. So I gave them back like $250. So that's just something with the money that is reverted back to them. We earn our sick leave. That's not something we stole. And I'm very proud to say that I have under 10 hours where I had previously over 1,100 hours. And that's because I took my own time instead of Uncle Sam's time. So I just if you could answer that about the money, I'd appreciate it.
I was going to let Lou go first.
Lou, go ahead.
I think he's talking about cashing out your sick leave, I guess. Or are you talking about, I don't really understand. Are you not talking about we should be able to cash out our sick leave?
Now, Lou, like right now, if I'm going to retire, they're going to give me, let's just say I had that 1,000 hours. I'm going to get some of that tacked on to the back end of the annuity. So the way I showed it to you is a coworker retired. He had over 6 months of sick leave. He only got $60 a month extra in the annuity due to that time he gave back. So when you sit down, does the post office say, all right, we had 1,100 people retire, and this is how much sick leave they gave back? Because when we give back that sick time, we don't get it back, baby. He ain't living to know 119, and if he does, God bless him. So I think that's the point I'm making. The same thing with the uniform allowance. How much goes underutilized where it reverts back to the post office? So that's, in essence, they save that money. of the sick leave. They didn't have to pay it because when we get our yearly statement, they're very proud to show this is how much your annual leave is worth. This is how much your sick leave is worth. And when I saw 14 or 15,000, I said, I ain't giving that to them, and but that is a number. There's a value on that time. And does that do you get that information during negotiations? And if you do, that should we should be told that. We should say, well, you know what? X amount of dollars reverted back to the post office. X amount of dollars reverted back. Does that help make it a little clearer?
A little bit, but I can tell you this: I've never done the financial side of bargaining, so I couldn't honestly answer your question like that. But I do know that you're a FERS, and you didn't always have a right to get your service time for the sick leave you had left. That wasn't always true. It used to be where if you used it, they'd try and fire you probably, and if you saved it, they would steal it at the end. You didn't get service time. You didn't have that choice. But that happened in Congress, like 2013, maybe 12. I'm not sure exactly when. But we attached a bill to that to allow FERS letter carriers to be able to do that service time. And some people, they go to work and you can get paid for not working by being sick, but you can't make double the money either. So, that's for somebody might look at it like that's $60 a month that I'm going to get for the rest of my life. And I'm going down that road rather than using my sick leave before I leave. And that's a matter of choice for what we have right now. That much I do know.
Yeah. And since I haven't been in the president, I'm not aware if we have that numbers. One of the things you said though, sometimes there's an argument maybe you don't want to make, we're trying to get more uniform money for our members. We're trying to get, more rolled over. We're trying to get them to give you, uniforms. So, numbers on what wasn't used, it might help their side, but I don't know that if that would be something that we would argue, right? So, and like I said, I don't know about the sick leave either. Just I don't know if they provide those figures to us.
All right, Paul has one last quick question before we sign
Okay,
off.
I'll try to make this quick as possible. I know you guys touched on it a little bit earlier and here just recently. Now we were talking about like route adjustments and how routes are being eliminated. In our area, and I know Nicole can assimilate to this one, all those big towns are moving out to suburbs and smaller towns. And, 20 years ago, for example, I'm going to say this, Gretna is about as small as could be and has grown exponentially. All those city routes were predetermined by a certain boundary. With the growth of all these all these cities are, leaving the big city and big cities losing routes. How can we gain those routes? We're losing routes, but we're also losing routes to rural carriers for those cities that are growing huge. It's happening in our area, and it all determines on where they start building the street. Look, like Gretna and Ashland and Waverly, which I know Nicole can see all that growth out there.
Yes.
I'm born and raised in Nebraska. Actually, I was listening to all this coming back from Nebraska. I live in Missouri. So, all these little towns or smaller communities are growing, and our boundary for city delivery isn't growing with it. Everything's going to rural. So how can we stop that?
That's not an easy problem to deal with because we've had those agreements for a long time and there's been boundaries that have been set in some cities, right? So it's and I know that most of the new growth and that would be going to the rural carriers. I'm trying to my brain is just spinning twirling on it. It is that's a tough it really is a tough problem. We talked earlier about merging, maybe we should talk about merging with them. I realize it has nothing to do with territory, but that certainly would have to do with us negotiating contract for them, but that would have to be something to basically wipe out agreements that exist. Lou, I know you worked on,
Oh yeah.
we have all the city rule stuff. I know we have
Oh yeah.
boundaries. I remember when I was branch president, we had to actually, determine where they were, right? So that's been years. So
right. Some cities have boundaries drawn out that all three parties agreed to. And if you have that, that's what you have. You're stuck with that. That's what somebody agreed to. You can't change that agreement. And you can't make boundary agreements unless you have all three parties, which rarely you're going to get. That don't happen either. Now, we did 2 national decisions, and one was Vienna, Vienna something, Virginia.
Yes.
And the other one was down in North Carolina, Cary, North Carolina. And these arbitrators set sort of the rules. And what the truth is, management has a lot of discretion based on those awards on what craft they assign new deliveries to. If it's something that's an extension of city delivery, you have a fighting chance on that. But the idea, like I was saying earlier, what's happening now is management's assigning all these deliveries like you're talking about the rules, and then they can't hire rules, and they end up having city carriers deliver the daggum thing. Now, that is something I think could be worked on, that right there.
Yep.
But there's not a good answer to your question. They're just saying.
It was a good question, Paul, but there's not an answer to it, though. Unfortunately,
not a good answer.
Not a good answer. There is an answer. Margot, did you have one last question for Nicole? Very quick, though. I think it's gonna be very quick. You got to throw out some dates to her.
It's a yes or no question. Nicole, would you be willing to come on the Women's Roundtable and do an episode with me before the election?
Well, that's an easy answer. Yes.
Yay! Wonderful. Thank you.
Do you know how to get a hold of me?
I could just call the office, right? Like, is that cool?
Okay. Yep. All right. Absolutely. Call me.
Fantastic.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Nicole and Lou, for staying on till midnight Eastern time, and thank you to the 64 people that stayed on as well. Have a good night, everybody, and again, thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for having us too, y'all.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Anytime.
We really appreciate it.